You are now listening to the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Hello there, and welcome back to the Disconnected, here with Alan Maxson, who is an actor, director, editor, creature effects, everything extraordinaire. Alan, thanks for coming on the show with me today.
That is like the most gracious title I've ever heard. that makes me sound like I'm awesome. Thank you.
I mean, if you look at IMDb, there's a lot of stuff that you've had your hands in. It's hard to sum all that up properly because a lot of it takes years of mastering the craft. And so here we are to catch up on the Disconnected.
All right, here we go. 20 years of chatting. Let's go.
We'll get into physical media in a little while because that's what brought you and I together. But we've got a handful of things to discuss that are important. One of the things that people will most know you for, which you've already mentioned to me, is the thing that you get a lot of questions about. So we're going to knock it out early. Let's talk about Godzilla. What'd you do for Godzilla?
Wait, I've never heard of this movie.
I'll send you the link in the private chat. 1 second.
So I played King Ghidorah from Godzilla King of the Monsters in 2019 via motion capture. Myself and Jason Lyles and Richard Dorton all played our respective heads. As if anyone is not familiar with the franchise, King Ghidorah is the three-headed dragon, the biggest arch nemesis of Godzilla. He's, the Godzilla fans are going to hate me. I don't know the exact number, but he's a lot taller than Godzilla. Right. He's like the big bad. And so, yeah, basically in the movie, when you see Godzilla fighting King Ghidorah, all of those stunts, all of those action scenes, we did them in real life. We used motion capture. There is an actor who played Godzilla, and then the three actors of us that played King Ghidorah. We choreographed every fight, and we just worked it out with the director and made some awesome monster scenes for everybody.
And here you are now, a part of the MonsterVerse history. That's got to feel pretty special.
I'm honored. It's a huge franchise. Not only is it, I think it's over 65 years at this point. Yeah. But it's not just a domestic franchise. It's worldwide. Obviously Japanese, but like every country knows about Godzilla. And particularly right now, it's a very hot time for Godzilla. You have Toho doing it. You have Legendary doing it. You have Apple doing it. There's a lot going on. So I'm honored and grateful. And it's cool. It's super fun. And Godzilla, man.
You've acted in tons of things, and then to step into a mocap suit, do you feel yourself preparing differently for that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Good question, Ryan. So I'd say 90% of my roles are suits or prosthetics. Like right. I'm in a physical suit, playing a non-human character. But for mocap, and then particularly for King Ghidorah, not only is it's just a different beast where...
Nice pun, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. So with motion capture, so in a physical suit, you have to lean into the restrictions of the suit.
Right.
If the character is humanoid, you can lean into it easier. If there's more things like a tail or long extended claws, giant snouts, things that make you have to change your perspective and your awareness of your surroundings, you really have to adapt your physicality to that to make it not only work, but make it believable on camera.
Right.
Mocap is a little different because it's capturing your data of your skeleton. So some mocap you'll see they do add things like tails or extensions. Planet of the Apes, they'll add the arm extensions. But something like King Ghidorah, there's three heads. So there's three actors, Jason, Richard, and I. We originally tried tying us together. Like potato sack style, like a sack race. But then they tied our ankles. And then we were just like, because the stunts, as you saw in the movie, there's a lot of smashing and crushing into buildings and smacking and biting. It just got too clumsy being tied. So
Right.
what we decided to do was we just trusted each other. Jason was in the middle because he's the tallest. Richard and I, on each side, we'd put our hands on Jason's back, and that was kind of our support. And he could feel our momentum, like when we're moving, so we could all move as one. But then also the way the character is physicality-wise, it doesn't have 6 legs and 6 hands. So we kind of have to, imagine our hips are the shoulder of the character. So our whole torso is the neck, and the face, obviously for facial capture, we did a lot of performance with biting and snarls and emotion. That was a big thing, was the emotion. Each head has a different personality. And so he wanted us to lean into that. And if you watch the behind the scenes of what Mike's direction was for each personality, it comes off on screen. I thought it was very clever for him to do that, because all of the practical versions of King Ghidorah, you don't get emotion in the face like you did in the CG one. So I thought it was cool to see, the curious, the alpha, and then the angry, and you can tell. And a lot of stuff, you'd be watching, you'd be like, oh my God, I definitely make those faces, or, Richard does, and Jay, you can just see. So that it's different. It's a different technology, different performance that you have to put forward. So long-winded answer, turn short. Yeah, you prepare different.
Well, and one of the words that you brought up, which I'm so glad you did, because I was going to use it in this next part, is when you're doing mocap, you mentioned that you're capturing data, and it's all about that emoting. And the way that you emote for mocap, the way that you emote in a full-blown creature suit or something, with a tail or long arms or a snout or whatever, is going to be very different than somebody just acting, because you don't want to overact, of course. But now we throw in a fourth thing in your movie, which we'll talk about more in a little while. You also did a voice, which brings on a whole other different version of emoting. So, as somebody that's going into all of these and trying to do your best to capture this realistic take on it, what's the most difficult one for you to emote properly for? What's the most difficult one for you to get into?
Being a human. Because I play so many monsters and creatures, and it's rare when I get a human role. I played one in a film very recently. I think it comes out at the end of this year, if not the beginning of next. And I played a human, and I had to really focus on toning down, because when you're in prosthetic, you have an inch thick barrier between your face and the camera. And so you have to over accentuate, but you don't want it to be like, I'm acting. You have to play big, but realistic big. So it's like this fine line that I've honed into over the last, decade of playing these type of characters that I just drop into naturally. Whereas when I don't have it and it's my face, I really have to make sure I'm a human, because then it's not only is it not believable, but it's dumb, and you don't want to watch that. So that's the hardest for me. Luckily, when I've done it, either the directors are good liars, or they're very gracious and tell me that I've done well. But but I think, I'm so hyper focused to make sure that I do good, because I don't play them so often. So I definitely I put an extra foot forward when those happen.
There's a little more reputation at stake, because they can see your face too.
Yeah, I can't blame. Someone else was in that suit.
With Alien Planet, that is your baby. That is something that was all you from the ground up, and it's out in the world now. How have you felt releasing that to the world and allowing yourself to get feedback on it? Because I know for a lot of directors, the first big one is kind of a difficult step to take like that.
Yeah, you go through waves, because it means a lot to you when you put in, I put in 3 years making this. I had a huge amount of help from the cast and crew and the backers and everybody who helped make it happen. But at the same time, the amount of hats and hours and days that I personally wore, it's hard to sometimes see negative feedback, because you just go, oh, I'd like to see you do it better. But, it's one of those things where you roll with the punches, and everyone has their own opinion. And And while it's easy to say things like, I had a budget of about 80 grand versus a lot of big budget movies have millions.
Right.
Yes, there's a huge difference, but at the same time, you have to learn to work with what you have and not use it as a crutch to say, well, it sucks because of this. You have to lean into your strengths and hide things and get creative. And I think a lot of film buffs, the stereotypes, so you hear of like Sam Raimi and stuff like that. It's a very common thing you put out and say, oh, Sam Raimi didn't have a budget and he did great, so it's true. And you have to do that. But I think because Alien Planet is a very specific genre, one, there's no human characters. It's all aliens with prosthetics, makeup. There's puppets, there's monsters. It's very over-the-top blood, but also very serious social commentary like Star Trek style. So it's super genre. And I think if you are into that, the critics and the feedback has been spot on, and they love it and they get it. I think the people that don't like it were expecting something different, or it's not their style. And I know even movie buffs tend to not always like that genre. There's sometimes there's pretentiousness with movie buffs. But I think, if you like Star Trek, Enemy Mine, Alien Nation, that style of movie, I mean, you're going to like Alien Planet. And then the blood in it is so over the top. It's almost like Renfield level of blood, where it's just one smack to the head is just a gallon of blood. It's visual eye candy. And so, the reception has been interesting. It's been highs and lows. I think it's very rare to hear a middle ground. I don't think I've ever heard anyone be like, it was okay. Like, it's always like, I loved it, or that was garbage.
Right. Well, and thankfully, if you look through your IMDb credits, you've kind of been playing in the sandbox for quite some time. There's a lot of low budget films here. There's a lot of stuff that many of these pretentious people would scoff at, but there's also lots of fans of these things. I mean, when you're in the Evil Bong franchise, and when you're playing around in the Puppet Master series, and with Asylum and Full Moon and all these other companies that are dealing with 4-day shoots and less than $100,000, you kind of get used to that. So do you feel like, say in the next 10 years of stuff magically takes off and you're suddenly doing incredible, $1 million movies every single month, do you think that helped hone where you're going to be because of the abrasiveness of that low budget world?
Absolutely. And it's interesting because I don't actually equate myself with the low budget world. While I have done a handful of them, I've also worked on the high budget world as well as an editor, and also roles in performing. So I have this good, well-rounded observation of how it's done correctly on a professional level, but also how you can correctly cut corners when you don't have the money. And I try to, and that's what I attempted. I guess you or the audience can tell me if I'm right or wrong, but what my goal was with Alien Planet was to do the professional level that I work in as an editor and performing, while cutting the necessary corners to make it fit within, a $75,000-$80,000 budget.
Right.
And I think the biggest thing for that I'm most proud of was the fact that there's no humans. That many practical effects and prosthetics and everything on that budget.
That's a lot.
I have yet to see it done on that budget. So I try to walk the line. And to answer your question of doing more things, that's also ultimately the goal. My first film that I wrote and directed was a budget of $1,000. And it was called Christmas with Cookie. And it's a bad movie, but it got a huge cult following for being bad. And every Christmas, the streaming on that movie just spikes. But we leaned into it because I was like, if you're going to make a movie for $1,000, you have to lean into it.
Yep.
And it even recently got, a physical media release with Lunch Meat VHS. So it has a scratch sniff VHS colored green and red that you can order from them. And so after that, I wanted to make Alien Planet, but I knew because Christmas with Cookie was so low budget, and campy. It's very trauma. It's very bad.
Right.
It's meant to be bad. I didn't want that to be what people thought I could only make. So I had to make another show of work on a higher quality level. So I invested about $5,000 into a short film called Patina. And this is, it was a 10-minute short about an AI robot that goes wrong. I don't want to spoil the ending, but it's basically, it's like the Terminator meets the Twilight Zone.
Right.
And I made it serious, and I tried to make it actually a well-made 10-minute piece on that low of a budget. Once I did that, I was like, okay, cool. Now I have a show of work that shows I'm not just Christmas with Cookie. So then I moved forward with Alien Planet. I shot a spec trailer. We shot in one day. We made basically a concept of what it would be if we made it. And then I raised the money on Indiegogo, and then we went from there. And so, it went from 1,000 to 5,000 to, give or take 80 grand. So that's the goal. Each movie, I want to up the budget, production value, and just keep going. And maybe one day I will have a multi-million-dollar budget, and I'll look back and be like, hey, Ryan, remember when you asked me that?
I hope it pans out. The budget ballooning comes with expectations, of course, when you're going to be making something like that. How trepidatious were you for the Indiegogo? I know that's been a big question mark for a lot of people that need to fundraise because the world's changed dramatically.
It's a means to an end. So I will say it was one of the toughest things I've ever done. I did a 30-day campaign. I didn't have a team. I had cast and crew helping. I had a handful of people that were fantastic sharers, and they shared and promoted and reached out to others. But a lot of Indiegogo people hire a full-time team of 5 to 10 people that they're 10 hours a day. That's all they're doing. That job was basically up to me. So it was a lot of work. Honestly, those 30 days was harder than the 3 years of making the movie.
Right.
But I'm not a person who comes from nepotism or privilege. So I don't have any connections to reach out to someone to say, hey, do you want to be my investor? So it was my only means to get the movie made. Right. And I support it. I say, if you're a filmmaker and you don't have a way to have money, do it, because unfortunately, filmmaking is the most expensive art, and you can't do it for free. You can, but it looks like Christmas with Cookie when you do that.
Well, and one thing to take to heart, on top of if you are, supporting a filmmaker, actually support them and use your wallet to support them. But the other side of that is, through all of this is a very inspiring story. I mean, you've been in LA for almost 2 decades. You have worked your way up from smaller things to being in the Monsterverse and directing your own film. That's not necessarily the normal story for a lot of people that go to LA. So in that, what was there ever any point in the last 2 decades that it was like, well, time to go back, time to head back to Michigan?
That particular sentence, no. Sorry, Michiganders, but I don't ever want to live in that state. I'm not one for the snow. Right. But no, I don't think there was ever a thought of that's it or this is the end. The entertainment industry is hard. I will not lie. If someone is fresh out of school or from a state that's not California and you're looking at moving out, it's going to be hard. It will not be easy by any means. And I don't think it ever gets easy. I think you'll hear a lot of even very successful people when you think, oh, they're doing this. They acted in that or directed this. They're fine.
I love the accent change there, by the way. That was perfect. You see them people over there?
Well, those guys back in Hollywood, they're all drinking their avocado juice. Which I would. If there was such a thing as avocado juice, I would totally.
I'd try it, yeah. But after those 20 years, you've been in a you played opposite Godzilla. Like, not many people can say that. And to go from Michigan to Florida to LA and be able to stay there for that long, that's a lot of perseverance.
That's the key word. Is I think you can't go into the entertainment industry. You hear it as a stereotype. You can't go in it for the money or fame or whatnot. You really have to. That's got to be your passion, because it's going to continually test your patience. And if you don't enjoy it, you will for sure not want to keep going. It's perseverance, and also, I don't know, it's at a certain point, it's almost like too far to go back. Like, right. What am I gonna do at my age? Start over at a minimum wage job somewhere else? Like, it's just my resume says, a decade, 2 decades long in the entertainment industry. No one's gonna hire me. I'm unhireable. So I have to stay in film and TV, because it's, at a certain point, you're in too deep.
Film, TV, and now streaming, as you are premiering in Shudder's VHS Beyond this fall. Obviously, it's not out yet, so there's not much that can be said, but I mean, this is pretty damn exciting. Like, this is one of the biggest franchises in found footage over the last 5 or 8 years. How cool is this?
Oh, I'm very excited to be part of it. Not only is it another cool franchise, but for me, it has a little personal connection with the directors. So Jordan Downey and Kevin Stewart, they were the creators of Thanksgiving. And I had the honor of working with them on Thanksgiving 3. I went to South Dakota with them for, I don't know, it was either 2 or 3 or 4 weeks or something like that. And we filmed Thanksgiving 3. And I got to wear a suit on set, and I credit them as the first monster suit that I wore. And I was their on-set editor as well. And we just stayed in touch. And that was, 10, 12 years ago. And then they called me one day and they were like, "Hey, do you want to be in our movie for Shudder?" And I was like, hell yeah. So it just kind of worked out that, we stayed in touch and we were buddies, and they had this great opportunity, which is well-deserved. They're so talented. And I really enjoy working with them. And so it's for me, it's kind of like a full circle of a decade ago, I met you guys on this silly little movie, and now we're connecting again on a cool franchise that, what is this, number 10 or something from that franchise?
Gosh, it's not quite that many. It's like 5 or 6, I think, though. It's got to be.
Yeah, there's enough of them.
God, it might even be 7. Jeez, I mean, since they made the leap to Shudder, they've been knocking them out, I think, the last 4 years. So yeah, maybe it is number 7. That's a lot. And when that first one came out, it got good feedback, but it wasn't like, let's be doing this for the next 9 years as a franchise feedback.
And they probably will. I bet you they'll keep going. It's very successful, and a lot of people love it. And found footage for a while kind of got a oversaturated bad rap, but I think that one's kind of stayed strong in that genre.
Well, that is true, but on top of that, it's also a really good way to bring filmmakers together to collaborate. It's a good way to have them create something for less budget, because they're not doing it for 85 minutes. And then on top of all that, it allows people to prove themselves. I mean, through found footage and anthologies, we've gotten some of our best creators ever that were able to knock something out and make a big splash.
Another MonsterVerse director came from there, and I think Justin Long is directing one in this movie that I'm in. So it's yeah. And I don't know if he's directed before, but obviously he's known for being an actor. So it's like you said, it's another chance to prove himself as a filmmaker. So it's cool. It's very good.
With all of this on your resume, you mentioned the word proud earlier. I got to ask, you have hit so many different sides of the acting and entertainment world. What is the one thing, we'll say, other than Alien Planet and Godzilla, what is the one thing that you're like, damn, I really did that, and I feel incredible that I was able to put that out into the world?
I would say a film that's not out yet called Orangutan. This Orangutan translates in Indonesian to Fishman. And it's a movie that I filmed in Indonesia last year in October. I was in there. I was in the jungles of Indonesia in a very hot and heavy monster suit, fighting and killing some actors for 32 days. And it was a hell of a time. And the performance and what I got to do as an actor in a suit was, I think it's going to be my greatest work yet. And I'm very proud of it. I got to do heavy stunts, wire work, flinging me through the air 25 feet up,
Nice.
with a full suit and an animatronic helmet with all the gears going. And it's gonna be a good movie too. It's the script is fantastic. What I've seen so far of the footage looks great. So when that comes out, I'm gonna be very, very proud to say that I played the orangutan in that.
Do we know any details about the release that we can talk about yet, or?
I know. Let's see what's on IMDb. What can we say about it? I don't know. I know they did release a poster, the synopsis. So on IMDb it says, set in the Pacific, 1942, a Japanese soldier and a British prisoner of war are stranded on a deserted island, hunted by a deadly creature. Two mortal enemies must come together to survive the unknown. So that's what it's about. It's great. I'm going to be excited to be able to eventually talk about it. And I think monster lovers are going to love it. I think it's going to be a big favorite for.
Interesting.
Yeah.
With the kind of stuff you've done, it's inevitable that there's going to be some injuries. Any fun stories of stuff that's happened to you over the years?
To me?
Or around you, perhaps?
I'll tell one fun story for mine. I'm always very careful, so I've luckily never hurt myself because I'm always very aware that if I break something as the creature stunt actor, I'm done.
That's your job, yeah.
So I'm very cautious, and I'm always talking everything through with the stunt team, the coordinators, the directors, and making sure that we have it down before any actions roll. But there was one fun moment that I can talk about where it was a movie called The Woods, and this was done by a group called Sugar Pine 7. I don't know if it still exists, but they're a big YouTube group. And it's full body prosthetics, head to toe. They wanted me to grab a guy by his throat, snarl, have a bunch of blood go everywhere, and slit his throat. So they put the fake blood in my mouth, and this happens often. So eventually you learn to go, cool, just give it to me in a cup. And when you say rolling, then I'll down it and toss the cup. But they had me drink it. And as anyone who's been on set knows, it's always hurry up and wait. So I had a mouthful of fake blood, and they're like, cool, and holding. And I think we waited 15, maybe 20 minutes. It was a long time. And I'm just saliva growing, all the fake blood. And then they go, all right, we're ready to roll. And I was like, I'm going to have a lot of blood to spit out. So he calls action. We do the scene. And as I grab the actor's throat, as you would as a human being grabbed by a monster, you're going to scream. So he's screaming with his mouth wide open. And I go, and the blood doesn't go everywhere. It just goes straight in his mouth. I felt so bad for him, but he was such a trooper. He was like, he laughed it off and spit it out. And that was the take that was in the cut. So
Amazing.
that was a fun little accident and a funny story. But yeah, it went straight into his, unfortunately.
We've mentioned prosthetics a handful of times already. What is the most elaborate prosthetics you found yourself in so far?
That I've been in?
Yeah.
Well, I would say that two answers for that. One for me, almost all of them, because I would say if it's a suit, it's a you put it on, you have a helmet and zip up and stuff. But if it's prosthetics, usually you're glued in all day. So it's face, cowl, chest, arms, fingers, legs, everything. So when I'm a full body creature, there's been a handful of them. So I guess I'm just so used to it that I don't know if there's one that's like stands out as that was hard, because sometimes you're just fully glued in. The orangutan suit was tough because it was very, very hot. And if anyone's ever been to Indonesia, it's very, very hot. So it was just layers on layers of sweat. But I think Alien Planet is something that I'd like to mention for that too, is because there's no human characters and we filmed for 14 days, and prosthetics can't be reused. You have to have a new one every day.
Yep.
Because when you take it on and off, it gets ruined. So we had, I think it was like 55 or 60 prosthetics made for that film. And that's a lot to go through and manage. And our makeup department head on set, Alexis Payanessa, she's so fantastic. She basically wrangled all 60 of these prosthetics, had them organized and categorized, who wears what on what day, and she had to pre-paint all of them. And just logistically, having all of that ready for 14 days of shooting was a lot of pre-production, and it took a lot of planning and communication. And I think that was a huge ordeal to do.
So what's next on the directing side? You got your next idea cooking yet, you think?
I do. I have a couple. I think one is I do have more ideas in the Alien Planet world. It's a world that I've built that I have a handful of stories that I think are worth telling. I also have another one that is actually a musical. So I got a couple things cooking. It's all a process of not just time, but also which ones can get correct funding, which ones have to wait for larger funding, because you can't do everything on a very low budget. If it's a grand movie, you really need to make sure that you have a certain amount to hit a certain level that the goal is. Right. And I think particularly things are so different right now, at least in Los Angeles. I couldn't make Alien Planet today for my budget. It would genuinely be double, if not more.
Oh, wow.
And that movie came out last year. So it's like a lot has changed economically and just financially in the film industry. And I think
what is ballooned so much?
The cost of everything, cost of locations, the minimum wage of an employee, and because Hollywood has had a very tough time the last 2 years. Yeah. I think in order to get certain things like makeup and prosthetics or props, everybody's bare minimum of what they can charge for stuff, it just continues to go up because mortgage goes up, rent goes up. It's, everything's through the roof. And, I think it's crazy in the last, 3 or 4 years, just the cost of everything is so high that you really have to be aware of it. We tried shooting at the same location we shot Alien Planet at. About a year later, I directed a short for an anthology film, and I wanted the same location because it was a beautiful spot, and it went from $800 a day to $3,500 a day.
Holy fuck.
It's a huge jump. And I was like, holy crap, 14 days, I would not have been able to afford that.
Right.
So that'd be my whole budget of the movie. So
for a short, especially, Jesus.
Yeah. So there's a lot to consider when it comes to what projects to choose to put your time in. Because also, someone like me, since I don't make, some filmmakers will put out multiple films a year or one every year. I'm really trying to focus on making each one step up from the previous. And so I think taking budget and money into consideration is a huge thing on deciding which one to move forward with as I'm
Right.
because I'm writing and conceptualizing a handful of them right now. And it's just a matter of as they get to a point where I go, okay, I can move forward with this one. I just have to think of monetarily too. So it's a game. It's a business thing on top of creative, which is unfortunate because I would love to just let the creative juices flow, but
Of course.
it's a business as well.
Speaking of things that have ballooned over the last couple of years, physical media is what brought you and I together, and you're a big
Wait,
fan of that.
What is that? What's physical media?
It is this novel concept that not many people understand, but I'm glad you do because it allowed us to spark a conversation. So, what's your history with physical media overall?
Well, back when I was a kid, that was the only option.
Right.
But I also found it was very quickly, and I think people who like genre movies tend to notice this is early on the biggest tell-all of reasons why physical media is good is Star Wars, because every time it was released, something was altered. When you went from Laserdisc to VHS to DVD to Blu-ray to the 4K Blu-rays, every version had a different change. And I think that was an early notice. And then there's little things like special editions of other stuff. I think maybe you can tell me, or maybe the internet will tell me how dumb I am, but I believe there's a point where Ace Ventura had from the DVD to the Blu-ray something was removed from a scene. And I believe Gremlins, at a certain point, you could only buy the special edition, which had I think it was the keyboard music scene. And then E.T. was notorious for another one. The guns versus walkie-talkies. So stuff like that made me realize how important it is to keep your copies and don't get rid of them. And then once we got into the days of streaming, not just DVD to Blu-ray, once streaming actually took off, the movies that I liked weren't on any of the damn streaming platforms. Like, well, what am I going to do? Buy it again on digital?
Right.
No, I already have it. And then on top of that, the quality. And then particularly now with 4K Blu-rays, you can't get a 4K streaming that looks as good as a 4K Blu-ray.
Never. Literally never.
And also for filmmakers, extra features. I know now Apple will do stuff like there's behind the scenes on some of them, but not always. And then I think even the new Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, it comes with that cool raw cut where you get to see the side by side. I don't think you can get that on streaming. I don't think it's added on the extra features. So I think our age range, we are already well aware of all the reasons of why it's a positive to have physical media. People our age and potentially younger, obviously a lot do know and some do know, but I think we have to just continue advocating and educating and telling reasons so that the people who are watching streaming only might look up and in their 20s go, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing. Yeah. I want to buy this and just keep it alive. And I think what's cool is people like you having groups in a community in a post where you like, hey, there's a new release for this and a new release for that. A lot of times we're seeing stuff we didn't even know existed before.
Yep.
And what's cool too is because it is so niche with the collectors, I'm finding the movies that are getting 4K releases are so obscure before we're getting like the original Planet of the Apes doesn't even have a 4K Blu-ray. But like they recently released Vincent Price cooking show on Blu-ray and it's like but of course I pre-ordered it. Yeah. Physical media is a good thing, and I think it's great. You said it's how we met, and it's because of your page. Disconnect is just it's a great community, and I look at it as news. I mean, I check your site more than I'll check the actual news. You know?
I'm honored. With Alien Planet, how did that feel to hold a Blu-ray of something that you created and be able to stare and look at credits on the back and read a synopsis and feel? I'm imagining just immense pride over something that you made through and through.
Yes, absolutely. For all the reasons that I described, because on streaming, I have distribution for Alien Planet on all of the platforms. You can watch it on Apple, Amazon, Tubi, YouTube, all the like 11 or 12 sites that I had never heard of until they said we're distributing your movie now. So it's everywhere. But the Blu-ray itself, not only is the quality better, yes, it's a Blu-ray, so it's 1080, but it's made from a 4K master. So when you pop it in, you can tell the compression is definitely better than the streaming. Because the streaming, for most, not all, but a lot of independent films, they don't release it in 4K on streaming. A lot of it goes straight to 1080, and they don't put the extra features. I delivered 2 making of featurettes with the streaming services, and none of them took it. It's just movie and trailer. So the Blu-ray has that. The Blu-ray has an 11-minute like making of with me talking about it while it's showing all the behind the scenes stuff, and then it's like a 17 or 19-minute behind the scenes just vomit of footage and me narrating what's happening and going to do it. So it's giving you an insight on how we made it, where you wouldn't have that without the Blu-ray. And so
Yeah.
I'm proud to have that for all those reasons of giving out to the world the stuff that I like from it, being part of it. And yeah, just something cool about holding it. You can't hold a digital file in your hand.
It's true. And taking it off and feeling like, you're looking through the shelves and rummaging through a video store, essentially, to be able to pull out, tonight, it's Alien Planet night.
Exactly.
That's got to be great.
Yep. No, it's definitely an honor. But it sucks because, I think particularly, and I'm curious if you've witnessed or heard other people mention this, but because independent films aren't seen the same as major releases, it's harder to get people to buy a physical copy. I find even streaming, they don't even want to pay for it on streaming. They will wait till it's on Tubi or YouTube. Yep. Even those commercials, they're like, I'm not paying for it, which is funny because, if you think about it like business wise, it means consumers are happy to give their money to rich, corrupt billionaires, but not a mom and pop shop. Like, it's the same concept. If you're willing to give your money to Deadpool versus Wolverine, but you don't want to give your money to an indie filmmaker, it's very interesting, the mentality of consumption of entertainment in modern day. It feels less like art and more like trying to fight the thought process of being entitled to free content versus, hey, we put a lot of time and effort to this art. What do you think? Right. And you see that with reviews too. If someone loves it, they'll write, this was a great work. You can tell what people put into it. I can't imagine all the effort that went into this and that. Or you'll get a review where it says, Garver, Dark Hero, garbage, thumbs down emoji, and it's like, you can tell the thought process of the consumer when you read the reviews and stuff too. So it's very interesting to be so connected to the distribution process.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a bunch of quirks of the consumption community that change too. I mean, there's so many people that will not pay for any film that came after a certain year because they don't like it because it doesn't look filmic enough. There's plenty of people that simply don't like things that are low budget, and they're against that whole world, which I don't really comprehend either because I'm a little more ingrained in it than others, I guess, maybe. But there's just so much out there to discover, and to turn your back on all of it. That I couldn't do that. Like, that sounds awful to do.
I mean, this is just a hunch, but it feels like I think someone like you and I, we look at it as a show of art. The same as if we went to go see a local band play, or if we went to go at an art gallery and be like, oh, our neighbor down the road painted this? That's awesome. You're talented. Whereas I think a lot of people do look at entertainment less like an art and more like, what is for me? It's required. It's like water. Like watching TV after work is as essential as getting free water. Like it's almost like there's a weird disconnect because the type of art that it is. So
it's a good point. If everybody was interested in your work, where do you want them to go seek you out?
Yeah, so I guess if you want to see what I've done as an actor, my website, alanmaxson.com. I also have, if you can't spell my name correctly, just creatureactor.com will take you there as well.
Wow, good URL. Lovely SEO. Very good.
Straight to the point. But if you want to watch my films, alienplanetfilm.com. It has links to all the streaming. It has links to getting the physical media on Amazon. Christmas with Cookie is also on there. You can get that on. The thing too is I have it set up so that if you buy any of my films, Cookie or Alien Planet, I'm going to send you both. So you'll get both in the package. So don't buy them both. You'll get them both in one.
Unless you want to be extra supportive, then obviously.
Yeah, then feel free. Then I'll send you 4. But no, you can also follow me on social media where I post all of my acting and directing stuff constantly. So I guess on all of the social medias, it's Monster Maxson. I have Instagram, Twitter, formerly known as Twitter. I don't have a TikTok, but you can pretend I do.
I can't imagine somebody as busy as you making the time to do TikTok stuff regularly.
Well, it's also, I barely wanted to do the other social medias.
Right.
But you kind of have to in modern day. So at a certain point, I was just like, I'm cut off. Because a TikTok, it also, maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like it's less about promoting your work and it's more, I'm going to dance to a song or something. Maybe, I could be wrong. I don't know.
Let's not go too into detail because we'll sound very old speaking about it. Alan, thank you so much for taking the time today. I know this is middle of the workday for you. This is great. I really hope that a lot of people are interested and check out your work, and many of them have already seen it in Godzilla, and now they just get to know the man behind the suit.
Thank you. Yeah, and for the people who like Godzilla, this is another behind-the-scenes thing. If you don't have the Blu-ray, Godzilla has a little featurette called Creating Ghidorah, and you can see us in the mocap suits doing all the work. I think it's on YouTube, but if not, go get the Blu-ray.
Or the 4K. Promise it's better.
4K is even better, yeah. And I'm curious if you see this being so deep in the physical media world are you noticing that even brand new releases after the initial release don't continue as much? Like I'm seeing major releases, they get a first push, but then once they kind of sell out, then you start seeing them on eBay for like $70 to $80. And you go, that movie just came out last year. What the heck? There's
quite a few examples of that, especially like not of course the special edition releases will always have that, but there are a lot of these that are either selling out because the print runs are shorter, or on top of that they're just, well, the collector's market will buy up what we have, so let's only plan 10,000, and based on that they're gone. And when something like Oppenheimer can sell 50,000 4Ks in week 1, but other stuff can't even sell 10,000 over like a year or two, that's kind of telling about the size of what we're dealing with here.
Yeah. I'm also noticing the thing that's fun about it is packaging. So back when we all made the first jump to DVD, like from VHS to DVD, the fun thing was the packaging. They were so creative. Like I remember they had the evil thing that looked like the Necronomicon, and like they had multi-disc sets and like colorful cases, and then Blu-ray came, and we were so captivated by the quality that it was just a boring ass Blu-ray case. But now that 4K is back and it's collectors, I'm seeing we're getting awesome things like Umbrella makes some badass cases, and
Yep.
Arrow does it too, and Steelbooks, and you're getting things like that, and it's fun to see the actual item on the shelf being fun to look at, and like, oh, I can look at this book before I watch the movie, even though I already know, like, it's a still image of the movie I'm about to watch, but it
Right.
like adds to it. And I'm happy to see that kind of coming back a little.
It's a big deal. Now I just wish we could emulate the DVD menu, because that was an art form in itself.
I might be the one who disagrees.
Oh.
It took way too much time to fly through space, land, and have a little design. I just want to, like, get to it, pick what I'm
No, I just want a fun picture in the background at least.
Fair enough. Yeah, because Blu-rays or 4K Blu-rays are now just a still.
Yep.
So you're right, it's very simple. Some of them took a while, and I also know, like, I'm a big Trekkie, and things like Deep Space Nine's DVD, you can't even hit play all. You gotta go manually through every episode and you're like, I just want to hit play all and sit back. So you meet in the middle, have a cool menu, but like get to the point a little bit more.
And have options. Yeah, the options are fine with me. All right. Alan, thank you so much for the time. I'm sure we'll be talking more. If there's anything else that comes out, I'll be sure to let everybody else know about it. But in the meantime, check out creatureactor.com. Check out all of the socials we mentioned. All the links are in the description below. Thank you, sir. Hope you have a good one.
Thank you, Ryan. This was fun.
Thank you for listening to the Disconnected Podcast. There's one big thing that you could do to help the show, and that is to leave a rating and review on the podcast service of your choice. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kevin Tudor, and I'm one of the 3 hosts of Almost Major, a film podcast dissecting many major indie studios and the films they release. Every week, myself, Charlie Nash, and Bryden Doyle discuss overlooked, forgotten, or bona fide classic indie films via studio-specific miniseries. We've previously covered numerous films from Artisan Entertainment, Lionsgate Films, and New Line Cinema. Titles including The Blair Witch Project, American Psycho, Dogville, But I'm a Cheerleader, Saw, Requiem for a Dream, and Ringmaster, you know, the Jerry Springer film. Anyways, we have a fun time every week, and we hope you will join us. Subscribe to Almost Major wherever you get your podcasts. Now proudly a part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Thank you for listening. To hear more shows from the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, please select the link in the description